And more business news. There was already very little left of the old world order after a year of turmoil driven by US tariffs and geopolitical tensions. Now that's colliding with a major oil shock. To help make sense of what's at stake for Asia, Roland spoke to Peter Draper. He's Executive Director of the Institute for International Trade at the University of Adelaide and one of the leading voices on trade policy in the Indo-Pacific.
I think the Gulf crisis could get worse before it gets better, but we don't know. It's an unpredictable situation. It could potentially expand to the Red Sea, of course, and interrupt containerized shipping, as it's already doing. And so from that point of view, it could get a lot worse. I don't think we're at the breaking point yet.
If the current shocks were to continue into 2025, what's that one scenario that you're most worried about? And is there any realistic path through it?
I think what worries me most is a wider expansion of the war, particularly to the Bab el-Mandeb Strait in the Red Sea, and a sustained lockdown of the Straits of Hormuz, lasting through to December or potentially longer than that. And in such a scenario, this region is very exposed, as we know well. I think certain countries will do better than others. Singapore, obviously, will do better, certainly. It's got the capacities and the oil reserves. Some of the others I've been visiting will suffer greatly. So the Philippines, for instance, very exposed, as we know. Australia has its fragilities. And then also I was in Laos and they were just starting petrol rationing. This was a couple of weeks ago. Now it's much more serious. And this is now, not 6 to 8 months into the future. So I think it can get a lot worse.
Okay. But you've also argued that this story isn't just an energy story alone. I mean, what are the quiet trade flows that are likely to actually be affected by this crisis?
Depending on how long it lasts, if it's sustained, I would worry about the semiconductor industry and related industries, thinking particularly Taiwan and its access to commodities such as helium and naphtha, which are essential in the semiconductors production process, and sourced previously almost entirely from the Gulf region. And it's that semiconductors-related trade that's really been driving regional export success in the context of the tariffs, the US tariffs that have suppressed some of the other trades. So, and Singapore is a big exporter of semiconductors, of course, so that's got to be a concern.
Supply chain resilience versus efficiency. I mean, for decades, Asia has been profitable simply because of lean, just-in-time supply chains. Today, the key word is resilience. So is that old model broken? And what does rebuilding of resilience actually mean for the man on the street in Asia?
And I think certainly the region has demonstrated resilience in that context, whether it's COVID you're talking about or the Trump 1 tariffs or even the Trump 2 tariffs. But the just-in-time model versus now the economic security imperative, which is just in case, this is quite a different world we're moving into. But I also think that that's a supply chain by supply chain proposition. So certain supply chains are going to be more sensitive for national security or economic security reasons than others. For example, clothing and textiles, I don't think constitutes a national security threat. Semiconductor trade, dual use, military applications, that's much more in the frame.
Okay, so governments are promising as well to keep supply chain resilience, but at the same time, are you actually seeing genuine restructuring, or is it just a case of the governments and the companies just stockpiling and hoping for the best?
I think it's probably a case of both. Certainly there's been a lot of restructuring of the semiconductors trade, and we've seen some big beneficiaries from that, Taiwan particularly, but Malaysia as well. And they've had semiconductor investments in place for some time, but they've really boomed in the last year or so. So again, I think it's a mixed story. Yeah, and probably, I'm sorry to say again, but too soon to tell. And particularly in response to this energy shock, because we just don't know how long it's going to last. So if I was a company making those investments right now, I would be hedging my bets. The longer it lasts, the more I would look to adjust my supply chain accordingly and maybe shorten the supply chain particularly. And that could be quite worrying for the region if that trend does, I think, gather pace. An onshoring scenario as opposed to a friendshoring or offshoring scenario.